Hey guys, it's Alyssa, and today I'm going to share with you my faux Swiss meringue buttercream recipe. This is one of my favorite frostings ever, and I'm so happy to share this recipe with you guys. So what makes this a faux Swiss meringue is that we are going to be using pasteurized egg whites. We're not going to be heating the sugar and egg whites over a double boiler as you typically would. So I'm going to go ahead and add my egg whites into a stand mixer. You're going to let the egg whites whip up just a little bit so that they're nice and foamy, about 30 seconds on medium speed. And then after that, you want to turn off the mixer and start adding the powdered sugar. We're going to do this gradually, and the reason why that we do this gradually is because it incorporates better, and also you'll avoid all of that sugar going everywhere. And here's a few tips about my recipe right away. The first one is that I'm using a 4.5 quart stand mixer. This recipe makes about 9 cups of buttercream, which is a lot, and it's more than enough to frost and fill a 6-inch or even 9-inch cake, so you're welcome to half this recipe. I needed a lot of buttercream when I was doing my small baking business, so I needed to scale a recipe that would be enough, and this just fits my 4.5 quart mixer. I would recommend halving this recipe the first time you try it, especially if you have a smaller size cake. The second tip is that faux Swiss meringue buttercream, just like Swiss meringue buttercream, does not crust. So if you plan to make a cake that needs a crusting buttercream, check out my American buttercream recipe instead. This will also melt in the heat. It doesn't really stand up well to the heat. It is very stable, but no buttercream can really last outside for long periods of time in direct sunlight. Now that we've added all of the powdered sugar, I'm just going to let this start mixing for a few minutes just so that it all starts to dissolve. You'll see that this is basically making a royal icing. This is actually, in fact, exactly how I would make a royal icing. Slightly different measurements, but it's the same type of process as a meringue-based frosting. So after a few minutes, I go ahead and I add in my vanilla extract, and then we're going to start cutting up our butter. And whoa, you might be saying that is a lot of butter. And I used to do that too because I would only make American buttercream. And most American buttercream recipes require 2 sticks of butter just for a single batch, unless you're going to be doubling it up or tripling it. So when I started switching over to making the meringue-based buttercreams, I was really shocked at how much butter one batch of frosting needed. But it is the main base of our frosting, so it's something that you're going to have to get used to. You want to make sure that your butter is at room temperature because if it's not, the buttercream can curdle. But the great thing about this recipe and most Swiss meringues out there is that you can fix it. So don't ever throw it away. There's always a way to fix it. I cut up my butter in 1 tablespoon and I'm going to just add them slowly. This is a long process. Making these buttercreams definitely is a lot lengthier than making an American buttercream, but it's definitely worth it. They're not as sweet. This recipe is it's cloud-like, it's smooth in texture, and it's silky. So even though I just described it as being very dreamy and cloud-like, you might be looking at this texture and thinking, this does not look dreamy and it does not look silky. And you're right, because this is definitely curdled. You can tell by looking at the very side of the bowl and it just has that curdled appearance. So how do we fix this? Well, the reason why it curdled was because of the difference in temperature between the butter and the egg whites. Something was not room temperature. And this happens pretty frequently because the temperature has to be spot on. You can also tell that the buttercream isn't really coming together yet because when I lift up the whisk attachment, it just really falls off. And it's not supposed to do that. It's definitely not supposed to be chunky and just anything that's opposite of silky smooth. So the first thing I'm going to do is scrape down the sides and the bottom of the mixing bowl because that will help us just make sure that everything is getting incorporated. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small mug or just use a microwave safe bowl and we're going to measure about 1/4 cup of frosting and we want to microwave this for about 10 to 15 seconds just so that it has liquefied, but we don't want it to be boiling hot. You want to add this back directly into the mixing bowl and then we're just going to let it do its magic. So basically the different temperatures are going to help the curdled buttercream come back together. Now you can also have another problem, which is where you have soupy buttercream which is opposite of curdled buttercream. And in order to fix the soupy buttercream, it's really easy too. So all you have to do is put the bowl directly into the freezer for about, I would say, 3 to 5 minutes. You don't want to leave it in there too long. And then the cold temperature is going to help it come back together. So if you're ever in doubt of what to do, try these different methods first before you think about throwing it out. This is definitely coming together, but it's still not exactly where I want it, so I went ahead and melted about another tablespoon of buttercream. I just wanted to do a little bit, not too much, because it's definitely coming back together. Now, the way to tell is to, well, you can look at it, but also you can look at the sides of the bowl. The buttercream that's pushed up onto the sides of your stand mixer shouldn't be greasy looking or wet looking, and it also shouldn't be sliding down slowly back into the bowl. After my buttercream was definitely in a better stage than it was before, I'm going to switch out to the paddle attachment. The paddle attachment just helps to push out all of those air bubbles. And one other tip that I wanted to mention, although this looks very full because it is, it's about 9 cups of buttercream, I've found that when the buttercream goes up over the attachment more so than when it's lower than the attachment, it actually helps to get rid of the air bubbles. My friend who went to pastry school actually told me about this trick too. So even though I thought that this recipe might be way too much and it was overpowering my bowl, I think it's actually just the perfect amount to get those air bubbles out. You can store this at room temperature for about 2 days, or you can put this into your refrigerator or your freezer if you want to do it in advance. But always remember to let it sit out for a little bit before you whip it up again. And you have to whip it up again because air bubbles will form because of the cold temperature. I actually flavored this with a strawberry emulsion, and I went ahead and made this really cute cake for someone's birthday. One reason why I love to work with this buttercream is because it's just really easy to pipe. It's silky and smooth, and it just goes on perfectly, and it also is not very sweet. To find the full recipe and any other tips, check out my blog post and I'll link it below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.